Hi, today I'm prepping a 427 big block Chevy for a Corvette restoration I'm working on. And as I'm prepping the block, one of the dowel pins is stuck in the block. This is actually the dowel pin that I need to try to get out. What there is there's two of these large dowel pins with tapers on them that mount from the engine block and align the bell housing onto the engine during installation. On one side, the dowel pin has been pressed in so far that we're unable to get a dowel pin puller or a set of vice grips onto it to get a grip to get it out. So we're going to go through the steps involved with getting this dowel pin out. So follow along. Thanks for watching. This is the dowel pin that we're going to remove from the block. And as you can see, with how little is sticking out and with the taper onto it, we really are unable to get vice grips onto it or a dowel pin puller. And if you look on the other side of the block, you'll see these oil passage threaded fittings with bosses onto the casting, and you're really not able to get behind there to actually to knock it out with a hammer and a drift. As you can see, I'm touching here, and the sharp angle on here, you're really never going to be able to knock that. The dowel pin has been tapped out 3/8/16. What we're going to do is thread a long bolt into it, and that will be the means to actually grip onto the dowel pin to pull it. I've also made up a housing which will slip over the outside of the dowel pin, and then we'll be able to thread the bolt onto it, and this surface here is what will give the pulling action. So as we thread the bolt in, we'll pull it out, and this will actually push against the flange where the bell housing mounts onto this engine block. I have access to a lathe, so I made this on a lathe. If you do not have access to a lathe, you could actually use a piece of pipe and a couple of thick washers on the back side. And so what you'd have to do is just hold all the pieces in place, but it would work just as well as this piece that was machined up. So what we will do is take our housing, put it flat against the bell housing, take our long threaded bolt and thread it in as far as we can. I also have another video on how to remove studs from exhaust manifolds that go through the steps to tap a hole if you're interested. So now this stud is pretty much threaded in through the entire dowel pin. I'll locate that against here. I will put a little bit of grease on here just to give it, to help reduce the friction while we're tightening it. And just keep tightening it until it's pulled out. I'm feeling from the back side that it's definitely pulling through, and the amount of force required to tighten the nut is becoming less and less as it's coming out of the engine block. And what's nice about this is the pulling forces are pretty equal. You're located against this surface while you're pulling out, so you really don't risk cracking the block. And there we go. That's pretty much all there is to it. Many times on the top of the block where the heads mount, you have blind bolts, blind dowel pins, and you could do exactly the same thing if you're unable to get those out with a dowel pin puller or a set of vice grips. But that's it. Relatively simple, relatively easy. If you do not have access to a lathe, you just use a piece of pipe with a couple of thicker washers back here, or you could stack up washers, and that's all there is to it. Thanks for watching.